Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mike Larkin, one half of the S&M Show podcast, and I'm back today with another interview. I'm here with recording artist, producer. He's worked with such acts as Men at Large, Little Zane, Petey Pablo, Bone Crusher, Sarah Stokes, Bobby Brown, Arrested Development, Mike Jones, Young Berg, and someone who's been on this show as well, Miss Elise 5000. I'm here with Mr. James A. Worthy. James, how are you today?
I'm great. I'm great. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right, doing all right. Looking forward to having you on here. First of all, I want to start off by saying, rest in peace, Prince. A true loss to the music industry. One of my favorite artists growing up. I gotta say, man, it was a hard loss this week.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was tough. I mean, I'm still at a loss for words for what just happened. It's like you never really thought that we would lose Prince at the age that he died at. It's just one of those things where we lost an icon, and it's hard to get over that, especially in the music industry. But the good thing is he left a legacy with music, and that's gonna live forever.
Okay. Now I gotta ask you. I love so many great Prince songs. I've loved songs such as the most beautiful girl in the world, When Doves Cry, Purple Rain. Just even one that he recently came out with. A couple of years ago, he had A Thousand Kisses. Just everything that Prince did, he just he tore it up. I'll be honest with you,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, question is for you is if you had to pick a Prince song, any ones would you say are your most favorite that stuck with you?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I like so many Prince songs, but my favorite, one of my favorite is "When Doves Cry." That's a classic. So,
Hmm.
um, man, there's so many. I can't even pinpoint just one.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, even with the Prince and the Revolution, the Diamonds and Pearls, the Cream. I mean, everything that he did was just magic.
Yeah, you're just one of those guys, man. You took creativity to the next level.
And dying at the young age of 57. Just another one gone too soon. I mean, what's crazy about that, even, too, is him and Vanity, man. Him and Vanity were the same age.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, so. Yeah, just rest in peace to Prince. Condolences go out to the family. And first off, when I want to get to you here, James, at a young age, what music were you into? When you were growing up, what type of music were you listening to?
You know what's interesting enough? I've listened to all genres. At a young age, it was either R&B, hip hop, pop, rap, country, rock. I just like music in general. Of course, I'm from New York, so with that alone, I was always exposed to different types of music and styles. And I remember in the house, different vinyls all over the place, and cassette tapes, and just different artists. And I used to sit down and listen to them, and you're like, wow, who's the artist? And they sound different than the next person, and the tracks sound so great. And that's what really kind of sparked my mind to really want to do my own music, because I started really researching musicians and artists and producers and songwriters. And I really wanted to make my own, because I knew I can do something that would benefit the industry. Even at a young age, I just had that mindset, that broad mindset of really doing something great. And I never lost that.
All right. Two things in common there. Well, number one, I am also a fellow New Yorker out here on Long Island in East Islip, New York, and I agree with you on that, man. I'm very eclectic in my ways. I love me some pop. I love rap. I love rock. Everything. Just music is music to me, and just as a whole, anything that comes out, just I listen to it as well. I mean, no, I don't judge on anything anybody does. I'm even a fan of gospel, so any type of music that's out there, I'm also down with listening as well.
Absolutely.
All right, now I gotta ask you, what made you decide to get into the producing game? I mean, I know you had some of the musics that you listened to when you were as a kid, but what is it about producing that you love? Who were some of your favorite producers growing up?
Oh man, I'm a big fan of Timberland, Pharrell, Quincy Jones, Organized Noise. Those are really the pinpoint guys, and of course, Q-Tip from A Tribe Called Quest. That was like my favorite hip hop group of all time, and those guys kind of opened my mind to really getting into the production side. But it really came down to whoever was innovating at the time. Whoever kind of took those boundaries and made something of their own, and innovated the culture. That's what really intrigued me, because I was like, wow, if these guys can do it, then I know for a fact that I can make my own stamp in my own lane. And once I had that locked in my mind, I was like, okay, it's go time. I got to really hone in on this craft. And that was it, man. I just never looked back.
Yeah, interesting one that you talked to there. I'll mention too. You mentioned Timbaland, and man, some of the stuff he did with Missy Elliott, the late great Aaliyah, rest in peace, was one that stuck out with me growing up. I mean, later on he worked with Nelly Furtado. Timbaland is one there, and you mentioned a Tribe Called Quest, and I mean, as a kid, I remember Tribe Called Quest. They always tore it up. I mean, they did the theme song for the Wayans brothers back in the day, and I mean, I know one of them went on to do Lucy Pearl with Raphael Sadiq of Tony, and Dawn Robinson, and Q-Tip, Vibrant Thing, Breathe and Stop, another just great artist.
Yeah, classics, classics.
Hmm. And all right, one artist that stuck out with me that you actually work with was Little Zane, because when growing up, when I remember the song that they did for the Hardball soundtrack, the strike one, I got you out,
Oh
strike
yeah,
two,
oh
yep.
yeah.
So thoughts of working with Little Zane, man. I think he's very underrated. A lot of people are not that I know are not aware of him, but yeah, I do remember Little Zane back in the days. Thoughts of working with Little Zane.
Man, Lil Zane is a dope guy, man. You know, really humble, really straightforward person. Cool spirit. We haven't been working for super long. We're just really getting a lot of records done right now. But the sessions that we've had, man, it's just real cool, organic vibe. We got some great records that we're going to be releasing this year. One in particular, we have a single dropping in August called "Be Friends," and it's just like a fun up tempo rap kind of vibe. He sings a little bit now, so he's kind of just changing the direction of what you guys know him for from back in the day, and he's just making good music.
Another one that sticks out from back in the day with that you work with is Petey Pablo. Man, I loved it because me, I have cousins down south. I have relatives in the south, and every time I go to South Carolina, because we have a house down there as well, man. I love the whole South feel. Yeah, thanks. The whole raise up, the Freak Leaks, anything that he did with Sierra, goodies even, just anything Petey Pablo did was awesome. Thoughts of working with Petey Pablo.
Yeah, man, Petey, man, he's a dope guy too. He's I would say not a super animated person, but especially when he gets in his mode and he's going to record, you can see that hunger and that animation in his voice when he raps. And cool vibe, real positive energy kind of guy. We've made some great records too, so shout out to Petey, man. That's my guy.
Okay, a couple more here. I got James for this artist goes, and then we'll move on to other topics. The legendary Bobby Brown. I mean, I believe you also did one with Bobby Brown Jr. What was it called? Champagne Dreams, I believe.
Yeah, man. Actually, me and Bobby Jr. Did almost a whole mixtape together. I've done so much music with him. It's crazy.
All right. Yeah, just I'm be honest. Thoughts on Bobby Brown? I mean, I'll be honest. If Bobby Christina was still alive, I think she would have been tearing it up. And rest in peace to her, and rest in peace to late Whitney Houston. Just thoughts on the whole Bobby Brown deal.
Man, Bobby Brown, that's like Uncle B right there. We call him Uncle B. Real cool guy. Of course, I work with his son Bobby Jr. They're like second family. They're real cool people. It's just organic vibe. Real positive energy vibe. We're kind of like fans. So, shout out to Bobby B. Shout out to Bobby Jr. Shout out to the whole family, man. Like, it's more so a real musical, organic family. Everybody does something musically, and they're all talented. Shout out to everybody.
Okay, two more artists I want to talk with you, James. Like I said before, we move on. You had Arrested Development. I mean, Everyday People, Tennessee. I mean, two classics right there. Just thoughts on Arrested Development.
Shout out to Arrested Development. Actually, I think the group is getting ready to release a new group album, and I've been working with them for a while. And I actually worked with Issy Moncho. She was the female lead vocalist and dancer of the group, and I've been working with her for a long time, and she's working on her solo project. So it's just really cool working with them, man. Real interesting vibe. They all have different distinctive personalities and ways they work and do things, and they all have their own identities, which is an awesome thing. And we kind of feed off each other. So once we do that, that's when the creativity flows, and we make great music.
Okay, and the other one I wanted to mention was she's been on the show as well, Miss Elise 5000. I've told her very much she's talented. I believe she has an album coming out called Wasteland. She's working on, and just thoughts of working with Elise.
Man, Elise is just super dope. She's just a super dope artist. I think pretty soon people are really, really going to catch on to what she's about to do, man. She just has a different vibe. The one thing that I really enjoy about her is not only does she write all of her music, but she records herself. She mixes her own records. Like she produces. Like she's a one stop shop, and that's something rare to find a lot of times with new artists. So shout out to her, man. We got a lot of music together. Check out new music we got on her new project coming out soon. So shout out to Elise.
All right, yes, and I'll say a shout out as well on behalf of the podcast because I will be speaking with her in a couple of weeks. Look forward to getting her back on the show. Bobby, talking about James coming up, we also had Love and you actually made some television appearances. You got Love and Hip Hop Atlanta. You made one on Access Hollywood, TMZ, from the bottom up on Centric. I mean, thoughts of just doing those TV appearances, man.
Oh man, you know what? It was just really a branding strategy because a lot of times I notice is with producers, they don't really get the TV time that they should. You know, for example, if you're working with somebody that's going to be on a TV show, you should see them in the studio working with the artist and something musically inclined with their client. And that's what I did. You know, when I did DTs from the bottom up, shout out to Sarah Stokes. She was the main cast member on that show, and people seen us in the studio on there. I did Access Hollywood talking about Bobby Christina. I did music with her before. I did Love and Hip Hop. Shout out to Carly Red. Shout out to Rashida. We did music on that. Man, what else? I got another show that I've been on Bravo. It was more so a music competition kind of show.
Mm-hmm.
Just giving new artists an opportunity to showcase their talent. So that's really all it is, man. Is just showing people what I can bring to the table and what I really do just to a big TV platform. You can't get no better than TV. That's free promotion in front of millions of people, so you can't get no better.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned Sarah Stokes. Like I said, very talented artist is she. I do remember her from making the band too, and the band just that whole working with her. Yeah, that's got to be awesome. Like I said, very talented artist.
Absolutely.
I believe that was the season with what was it, P Diddy and the Junior's cheesesteak and all that.
Yeah, yeah, that was a really big time, man. A lot of these shows uh, took a lot from that making a band. A lot of that was like one of the first major reality TV shows for artists.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they really made a stamp in what reality TV is today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, first they had O Town, and then they did making the band too, and just that was another great show. All right, moving on, James. I would just like to get into now. All right, we're gonna talk music here. Keith Sweat has a new song out called "Good Love." I mean, a lot of the artists coming from from the '80s, the '90s are coming out, which is great. Stephanie Mills just did a new song with her cousin Casey. I mean, all in all, man, it's great to see the artists from back in the day coming back out with great music. I mean, thoughts about Keith Sweat and all of them coming out.
I love it. I love it. I mean, that just shows that um, his music is always going to live on, and he can always do it. You know what I'm saying? It's not really limited to what people always think. I think that's a stigma sometimes. Is people always think that they can't come back or they can't do anything else. It's really all about what the artist feels and what they feel is right to them because it really shouldn't matter what someone else is thinking. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody has their thoughts about what someone should do or what they shouldn't do, and that to me kind of disrupts the creativity of music. Music is music. And, we all have different ways of expressing it. And if we want to put something out that feels good to us, then we have that right to. It's not always about what other people think. And, I really applaud, artists like Keith Sweat and CeCe Peniston and Stephanie Mills and all these artists who are coming back with records. I really applaud them because not only does it take, a lot to do that, with the critics in your ear all the time and what people say, but it's all about having that courage to keep it moving. We're all artists at the end of the day, and we got something to do, which is make music and just give it to the world, and that's it.
Yeah, and another one I want to mention there is we also had After Seven come back with "I Want You," which is another killer track. I mean, you also had Silk just came back with another hit. Silk back in the day with "Freak Me." I mean, just
Oh yeah.
it's awesome. I mean, so glad that these artists are coming back with these hits. I mean, I've got to thank my mom for this, man. Because growing up, this is the stuff that she loved. She loved, Stephanie Mills. She loved all the olds like Smokey Robinson, the Miracles, all the great artists, man. And I'll be honest, one that I loved when I was a kid, they did, Next. We're coming upon the, I believe, 19th anniversary of Too Close, which is just crazy to think about. I mean, you had Mark Morrison, Return of the Mac. That's coming on its 19th one as well. I mean, just those acts back in the day, man. I said this with Elise. I want to get your take on this. I mean, music back in the day, would you say it was more a little significant of what, the songs were meant? What I mean by that is, most of the songs you hear now is like who wants to, hook up with who. They don't really talk about love in a way anymore. I don't know if you
Right.
can agree with or disagree with me on that.
Man, I totally agree. And you know, it's so funny. I just had a panel with RL of Next the other day, and we were talking about that, and you know, we really said that a lot of times music today doesn't have any substance or doesn't have a lot of lyrical content. It's just same stuff that you say over and over, or taking what someone else said from another song, or making things sound so cliche. It's not real lyrical content that's being said or real topics that are being talked about in the world. You know, it's just about lick me here, lick me there, or do this, do that. It's like, that's not real music anymore. You know, back in the day, we really talked about real topics and we really said what was needed to be said and what we really felt and what we went through. And I think that needs to come back, man, because that's where music was authentic. That's when you really felt something. I don't think a lot of music nowadays you can really feel it. Like you hear it, it sounds good, it's cool, but you don't feel it in that core and in your heart. And that's what real music is. And we were just kind of discussing how that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring that back, and that's why I applaud a lot of these artists because they are trying to bring it back. But it's up to the people to request it. It's up to the people to really sit down and listen to it and take note of it, and let's bring it back.
Agreed. I mean, I'll give you another one with RL. RL was on that. This was another, I would say, one hit wonder, if you will. But back in 2000, Ideal had that great song, Whatever. He was a part of that. I mean, he next has done songs with Jaheim, another one of my favorites. I mean, Jaheim even came back with Struggle Love this year. I mean, he's another one that's really tearing it up. What I want to also get into is thoughts of like artists such as you had back in the day you had John B. John B was another great one. He came out with Babyface back in the day. He did a song called Cool Relax. He had Don't Talk. Many great songs. They don't know. Thoughts of guys like John B.
Man, I love John B. Man, those are just one of those guys where he was real R&B. Even guys like Jay Holiday.
Mm-hmm.
Jay Holiday's a good friend of mine. He's one of those guys to me where when you heard a Jay Holiday record or a John B record, you can hear the soul, you can hear the pain in their voices, especially with falsetto. To me, those guys are one of the best to ever do it with falsetto. And even going more deep, a lot of people even speak on Marcus Houston. Like Marcus Houston to me has one of the most sweetest falsetto voices ever. And I think he's so slept on because it's a political game in the industry. It's all about politics and what the masses think. And a lot of times music doesn't get heard because it doesn't get to the masses. And that's the frustrating thing because there's so much good music out, but it doesn't get all the way heard.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we need to work on and bring back, man. That's why I said people need to really request these records, man, and really do the research and see who's coming back out with records. These are artists who have made stamps before, and they're still coming out with great music. Let's just bring it back to the forefront.
Agreed. Marcus Houston's, man, I remember him back in the day with Immature when Batman. Just he was also on Sister Sister. I remember he did the movie You Got Served, and I mean he had that song Naked, which is that's a great ballad and all. But yeah, Marcus
Yeah,
Houston is one that a lot of people I agree with you that they do sleep on because he's another one that was very talented.
absolutely. And he still puts out music.
He
I think
does.
he's put out at least 5 or 6 albums.
Mm-hmm.
Like the guy's really been consistent throughout the years, man. It's just we live in an industry now where it's so political. It's about how many spins are you getting, how many followers you have on social media. How big is your fan base. It's just um, it's not always about the talent anymore. It's that's really like 50% of it now. It's all about talent and social media. That's all it is now, which is not always a good thing, but um, hopefully that'll change. We just people just have to get on board.
Man, it's funny that you mentioned social media and what it is now is because I remember back in the day when I used to just you hear the song and you want to buy the CD, or they would have the singles that they would put out, and now everybody, we could just download it off iTunes or Spotify. It's just I don't think kids
Right.
nowadays can understand the meaning of going out and purchasing that album or single and just listening to it upon hours and hours and hours in the privacy of your home and not on your phone. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody does now. It's just kids like nowadays will not ever experience or be able to appreciate the significance of that back in the day.
Very true. Very true. Yeah, I mean, I remember those days too, man. When we didn't have Twitter and when we didn't have Instagram, everything was really word of mouth and what people thought about you, and if they heard it on the radio, if they seen it on a blog site or something, that was the real organic way. And now that we have social media, of course, things are so much different and easier, but it can really trick you to what's really going on. So it's 50-50.
Hmm. I mean, yeah, I mean, I believe what are you 28, and I'm 24, so we both grew up around the same around the same time there with such great artists. Now I gotta ask you, man. In the '90s, we had the integral East Coast versus West Coast. Biggie, Tupac, Death Row, Bad Boy Records. Be honest with you, I enjoy both artists, such as Tupac and Biggie. Rest in peace, man. If you had to pick, who were you more of, a Biggie guy or were you more a Tupac guy? For me, I would say both. I don't know how you feel about that.
Oh yeah, I gotta say both. Because a lot of people really don't think about them as two different artists.
Mm-hmm.
They were two different styles. They were two from two different sides of the world. They were different. They just got caught up in a beef.
Mm-hmm.
But they were friends.
Mm-hmm.
They just got caught up in the wrong things and people in their ear and doing this and doing that. And I think that was just the bottom line. But they both made history. They're both icons. They're both great artists, and I love them both.
Agreed, man. And I mean, the good thing now with Biggie, with his music, carrying on, and Tupac's music carrying on, his widow there, Faith Evans, has just been killing it. I mean, she did that song with El DeBarge, "Lay with You," and she's still making records, and it's nice to keep hearing from Faith because Faith is another one that was big back in the day.
Yeah, big fan of Faith.
I mean, we also had Carl Thomas from there, and Carl Thomas, he came out with Emotional, I Wish, Summer Rain, and I mean, just another one. Carl Thomas was big on the Bad Boy records.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, Bad Boy. A lot of people really didn't realize Bad Boy had a lot of great artists. I think just in any label or any business, things sometimes don't work out, or things just don't happen the way they should happen. But you can't discredit what Bad Boys bring to the culture. You know what I'm saying? They brought a lot of great artists to the table and hit records. Timeless records. You can't take that away.
Yeah, and another one who I'm still is awesome. I mean, if you want to go to the Jacksons, obviously Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5 and all that. But even if you look at Janet came out with No Sleep and that tore it up, man. That song is awesome.
Absolutely, absolutely. And shout out to Janet. I've seen her in concert before, man, and she's awesome.
I'll tell you right now, man. We also had, man. Yesterday was the birthday of Luther Vandross, the late great Luther Vandross, and I can say personally, I saw him I believe it was like a year or two before he passed, and man, that show was awesome. It was out here on Long Island at the Westbury Music Fair. Luther is one of those guys, man, that I don't think even kids nowadays will understand because he was just he really was the man.
Yeah, I mean, he to me he was one of those guys where you really felt what he was saying,
Mm-hmm.
Especially with his voice. He had a real deep monotone voice, and it was like a sexy voice. So he can give what the ladies wanted, then he can give records that the fellas would sing, to their ladies. He kind of had both worlds, and he was a bigger guy, for the ladies. He had it going on, and unfortunately, his time came, but even with any iconic artist, they have music that would live on forever.
Couple artists also that I would say that still are going strong, even with passing of either members or artists, whatever. Well, even going back to the Temptations. I mean, the Temptations, the original lineup was great, with Ruffin and Otis and Melvin and Eddie Kendricks and all of them. But man, once you got to like the 70s and 80s, they were still cooking, and then once you got to the 90s, they were still cooking with Phoenix Rising, and then to the 2000s. I mean, the Temptations are just gonna be forever, as they say in the movie. You know, Temptations Forever.
Of course, of course.
Hmm. Yeah, they're another one. I mean, I'll be honest. Out, I think in Harlem, they recently, I think it was last year, they had a High Five and Total tour. I mean, taking it back, you know, High Five and Total touring together.
Oh wow, man, now that is super awesome.
Yeah, High
Uh,
Five. I think it was Total. I think Troop was involved. It,
wow, wow.
it was a big tour.
I would love to see that.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the unsung High Five documentary. You know those unsung things that they did. Man, just it was awesome in a way, but it was sad to see because obviously the lead singer passing Tony Thompson. I mean, one I think was in jail because he murdered his wife, which is tragic. But still, they were another ones that had great music back in the day. You know, you had your Just Can't Handle It. Your I Like the Way the Kissing Game. I Can't Wait Another Minute. She's Playing Hard to Get. Quality Time. I mean, bunch of hits there.
Bunch of hits, bunch of hits. I mean, there's so many great groups that have came, throughout the '90s and even 2000. There's so much great music, and like I always say, man, it's people just really don't realize that what these people have done, it's musically and how they've changed people's lives through music. That's a very powerful thing. And for me, myself, being a music lover, I don't take that for granted because I've listened to these guys growing up. I've listened to, these people's music, throughout the years, and it's helped me through a lot of things. So I can never discredit any of that. It's just something that is dear to my heart. Because I'm a big fan of music in general. So anything that's touched me like that, I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, like I mentioned there with High Five and Troop. I mean, Troop goes back to the 80s, with Spread My Wings and All I Do Is Think of You, which was, even just a remake of the Jackson 5's, All I Do Is Think of You. And then B5, that, I don't know if you recall B5, they were like, they were, you do, okay. So yeah, they were briefly around. I know they did that song, they did a cover of it, but yeah, that song is another one that doesn't get old.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, and that was a time where they had the boy bands and the groups in the early 2000s. You had that stuff going on, so that was perfect timing. That was something for the young kids to, even if they never heard a Jackson 5 record,
Mm-hmm.
you knew it from that, and if they did their research, they could see where it came from. So that was a good time.
So I gotta ask you, man. Now we're talking about artists from back in the day, which, like I said, I appreciate and I respect. But if you were to say artists that's out now that you're like into, or that you're taking a liking to, what are some of the artists that you like now?
Right now, I like some of Future stuff. I like, of course, Kanye West, big Kanye fan.
Mm-hmm.
I like Frank Ocean, Chris Brown.
Mm-hmm.
I like Jeremiah, Sia.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's so many of them. I like artists who have different styles and different approaches to music. Not the same thing over and over.
And one I will mention that a lot of people, do say things about, but I'm a fan. I'm gonna say it. R. Kelly. R. Kelly even came back a Backyard Party, and that new album, The Buffet, is just killer.
Oh yeah, I mean, R. Kelly, he's always going to give you something great. He's just that guy.
That he is. Now I gotta ask you before we close this out, James. And as I said, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're most welcome. Before we close this out, we get to some more stuff here. I want to ask you, as a producer, obviously, the vocal points and pun intended there. What is it that you look for in an artist? Would you say?
For me, it's pretty simple. I look for, of course, talent, authenticity, passion, drive, and the one question I usually ask new artists is, why should I work with you?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times they really can't give a straight answer, but if they can give a straight answer, it's usually, I usually hear, well, my music is this, is that, it's different from this artist, that artist, and I go a little more in depth to see exactly what they mean by that. And my definition is, you have to start thinking of yourself as a brand, because there's a million people who's an artist, there's a million people who sing, who rap, who write. A million people do the same thing you do. So what's going to set you apart from anyone else? It can't be that you just write differently. It can't be that you just have a different style of voice, So you have to think of it as the whole package. listen to you? How is someone who could do the same exact thing that you do, how could you differ from that? So that's the question that I always ask people.
All right, that's a perfect answer, man. And James, once again, I want to thank you very much for coming on. And I'll say this to you right now: anytime you want to come back on for another time, like I said, another show, I'd be happy to have you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
You're most welcome. And before we do go, two things I want you to do. First, if you want to give one last message and a shout out to your fans, the floor is yours. And any advice you have for anyone who's looking to get into the music field and who wants to be a producer such as yourself, floor is yours.
Sure. Shout out to all my fans. Shout out to my Team Dream Music Group. If you guys want to hit me on social media, I am on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at King James Worthy. You can go to my website at kingjamesworthy.com. And just to leave just some advice for new musicians and producers and songwriters, just make sure that whatever you do, just never give up. Never give up. Always be consistent in your craft. Study your craft. Study the greats before you, and you'll be fine.
All right. And James, once more, thank you again for coming on, and I look forward to speaking with you again down the line. It was an absolute pleasure.
Awesome.
All right, you take care, and have a great night. I will be in touch with you.
Sounds good. Have a good one.
You as well, James. Thank you, sir. All right, bye. All right, what a great conversation, what a great talk, and what a great producer and talent, Mr. James A. Worthy. That was an absolute pleasure to have him on here. Can't say it enough, bears repeating. And, folks, that will close out another interview by yours truly, Mr. Mike Larkin. And, more audio to come. Stay tuned. Everyone, have a great night.